Let's catch up with Hank South, break down this recruiting class. Hank, welcome into the Blitz. How you doing, man?
Hey, good morning, Martin. I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing well. Well, I know it's a busy day for you. Bama Online, all types of updates at 247, keeping us in the loop. At Hank South 247 is where you can find all of your stuff that you're writing and tweeting out about. But Hank, kind of give us an overview of what Alabama was able to do, Nick Saban, in year two of the early signing period.
Yeah, I think it was a crazy day. I think heading into the day, there was not a lot of optimism, I feel like, among the Alabama fan base that follows recruiting as far as how it was going to turn out. There was talk that Bama might strike out on all 3 5-stars, and Evan Neal, Minko Beam, and Trey Sanders. Of course, this is a lot of just rumors. It just seemed like it had the makings of maybe being sort of a letdown, I guess, as far as what we were expecting a few weeks ago. It didn't get any better when Dax Hill was announced that he signed with Michigan. Kind of had that same Bobby Brown feeling, I guess, last February signing day when first thing in the morning Bobby Brown just signs with Texas A&M and not Alabama. So it kind of started off a little shaky. Jordan Battle flipped from Ohio State, so the day did get started off on a positive note for Alabama. And then from then on, it kind of just turned on. Georgia was being talked a lot about with Trey Sanders, and a lot of people thought maybe that'll affect Evan Neal. About midway through the morning, talk started to circulate that Bama was indeed back, leading the charge for Trey Sanders, and they did ultimately get his commitment at the noon hour, and then got Evan Neal shortly after that. So really the only two, I guess, knocks on yesterday were Dax Hill flipping back to Michigan, which there's been some talk that was kind of maybe in the works. It wasn't clear when it was going to happen, but he wasn't expected to sign early, so you kind of had to figure he wasn't really completely set on Alabama. And then Minko Beam choosing Georgia, which if you followed that recruitment, it wasn't a huge shock. There were several teams in the mix late. I don't think he made a final decision until close to when he announced yesterday. So Alabama ends up signing a really, really strong class. They held on to their commitments that they were supposed to sign. Justin Eboigbe signing from Georgia. I know a lot of people were a little nervous about his tweet late in the process, talking about how he had 4 schools. He was tweeting about Tennessee. People thought maybe the Vols were going to flip him, but he ends up signing with Alabama. And then to top all of that excitement and drama off, Trey Sanders did not sign a letter of intent for about, I don't know how many hours, until 10:30 last night was when it actually came in. So there was a lot of talk about what was going on there. He ended it by signing last night. So Bama signed 23 people, 23 recruits. They have a very strong grip on the number 1 class still, and I think it'll be pretty hard at this point for anybody to overtake Bama, even going into the February signing period. I just don't think it's mathematically possible. And you can say that with a level of certainty because these guys have signed. There's not really any threat for them to flip. So,
right.
I think it was a really good day. It seemed like Bama really picked up momentum as the day went on, and I think it was kind of a good stepping stone heading into February.
That's Hank South at Hank South 247, Bama Online Recruiting 247 Sports Recruiting Analyst. Hank, 23 inked on yesterday, and I apologize for earlier saying 22 guys. Forgot Trey Sanders had not sent his paperwork in when I wrote those notes down. He did send it in overnight, so that did bump the number to 23. How many is Alabama going to sign, and how many of those are like already kind of set aside, like for Keelan Robinson and for Brian Young? Are those guys, those spots being held for those, and who else is Alabama going to go out to get? Because I look at the Minko Beam not as oh my God, it ruined this class, but to me, I think inside linebacker, just with the misses last year and then with the miss this year with Minko Beam, it is a position they need to try to find someone. So how many they're going to sign, Where are they going to go in terms of need position, and is inside linebacker one of those, and who would it be?
Yeah, to start on your first point, the guys that were committed that didn't sign, Byron Young, Keelan Robinson, and Christian Williams, we'll see how that kind of impacts things. I think any program, if your commitments aren't signing early, you kind of have to operate under the impression that they're not really committed. And I say that, Byron Young, I think is fully committed to Alabama. I think he genuinely wants just to take visits and kind of enjoy the last part of his recruitment during his senior year. I say that now. Is that going to be the same case in 3 or 4 weeks when he starts going to LSU, goes to Ole Miss, and those schools? We'll see. But I think Bama kind of has to just move along as if they don't have those guys in the class, because they didn't really get that assurance from them yesterday. So we'll see. So as far as holding those spots, I think yes to a certain extent, but at the same time, Bama has to look out for itself in the event that those guys maybe do choose to go elsewhere. And then, so with that being said, kind of going forward, like you said, inside linebacker, Minko Beam was a miss. He was an important target at an important position of need. If there is, a silver lining for yesterday, Christian Harris wasn't planning to sign early. He told us on Monday night that he changed his mind, decided to sign early. So they have him locked in along with Shane Lee. So they have 2 really good inside linebackers locked in. I think they're going to try to add at least one more. And it's a guy we've been talking about since the summertime, Tanneritos Noah, the 4-star inside linebacker from California, from a powerhouse program in California, De La Salle.
Isn't that where Tasha Poy went to school?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of I think that's an important connection, too, for him as far as, being able to relate to the West Coast kids, especially at the same high school he went to. So Henry's really, really high on Alabama. He didn't. I don't think most kids take visits from his school in the season, because that team's always on a state championship run.
Yeah.
So he's only taken one official visit, I think, so far to Washington. So he'll be back in January, and I think Bama has a good shot to get him. You say that now, and recruiting changes so often. I mean, this past week, there's been so many different storylines, but right. I think they're in a good spot for him to potentially sign him in February. Beyond that, defensive line is another important spot to finish strong. Like earlier I said, signing Justin Eboigbe, I think that was a really big deal. There was no drama with Antonio Alfano signing him. So they have 2 guys right there that I think could come in and make an instant impact on the defensive line if they are to lose. Their 3 starters up front. So Ishmael Sopsher, number 1 defensive tackle in the nation. I think that one's going to come down to Alabama and LSU. We've been saying that for a long time. And we'll see. I think you can make arguments for both schools. I like Alabama. Again, he's not signing until February, so there's a long way to go in his recruitment. Bama missed on Kayvon Thibodeau last weekend, the 5-star edge rusher from California. They have a pretty good. I'm not even going to call him a backup option. I mean, I think I think he's been able to come whenever he wants. He's just planning on not making a decision until January. His name is Chris Bogle. He's a South Florida guy. Bama's really high on him. He came out to the Champions Cookout last summer. He's going to announce on January 5th, and I put in a crystal ball for Alabama after he officially visited in November. He's still considering his in-state schools in Tennessee. So, but I think Bama's in a good spot for him, especially considering they did not land Kayvon Thibodeau, nor did they flip Nolan Smith. So there's that, that kind of spot open right there for him. So those are 3 guys I would watch. And of course, there's always names that pop up early on in January as new targets. Last year at this time, we didn't even know who Eddie Smith was, Jalen Moody, some of those guys late. So it'll still be, I think there's a lot of stuff to still follow heading into February, and it'll be exciting to watch.
All right. 6 guys signing from the state of Alabama, double any other state, which you had talked about last year, that this was a really strong class for the state of Alabama, and Alabama signing 6 kind of, I think, highlights that point. When you look at this class, one of those guys, I'm asking who's the sleeper. One of the candidates that I have is DJ Dale. Kevin Smith saying nobody's talking about DJ Dale. He's going to be a monster. Is DJ Dale potentially one of the sleeper guys in this class? And if not him, who do you think is going to be that guy that kind of burst onto the scene, sort of like Josh Jacobs did a couple years ago?
Yeah, I think DJ Dale is a great pick, maybe the sleeper of the class. He's already actually on campus practicing with the team. We talked about those three other guys getting in early, and Paul Tyson, Pierce Quick, and John Mechie. But turns out DJ Dale is there too, and we just didn't know it yet until earlier this week. But yeah, I mean, he's a monster. I want to say a 4-year starter, if not 3. I mean, at a strong program at Clay Chalkville. His coach had nothing but good things to say about him. I feel like every week this year we were talking about plays he was making. He was a goal line running back for Clay Chalkville. He had a few touchdown runs on the season show. For his size, he's pretty athletic, and I think getting a semester under his belt at Alabama, I think he can do big things. But beyond that, there's several directions you could go as far as sleepers. I've been saying this for a few days. Jalil Billingsley, that 4-star tight end from Chicago. The thing with him is Chicago is you say, oh, he doesn't have any exposure, but as far as recruiting coverage, there's not as much recruiting coverage in Chicago as there is like South Florida or somewhere like that.
Right.
But I think this kid's going to be special. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's recruited as a tight end. He played Wildcat quarterback for his team all year and just ran all over defenses in the highest classification in Illinois. So I think he signed yesterday, and I think he's rated 310 in the country on the 24/7 Sports Composite. But I think he's going to outplay that ranking when it's all said and done. So he's one guy I'm pretty excited to see get to Tuscaloosa. All
right, that's Hank South 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Hank, any closing thoughts on the class and prelude to what you have coming? Because I know you got a lot of great stories, but what's immediately on the docket for Hank South and 247 Sports?
Yeah, number one class in the country. I think Bama really, finished strong yesterday after what kind of early on, like I said, seemed there's a little nervous tension, it sounds like, but Bama did what Bama does. Nobody should doubt Nick Saban when it comes to recruiting. And I think that has been more evident this class than in any in recent memory for me. But we're going to have a lot of follow-up coverage on Bama Online. Today we'll have there's going to be several stories. I think there's number one overall class story coming out. We're going to do some class grades, what to look for going forward as far as targets for February, and so on. So it's a good time to join. And, of course, right after Christmas, it kind of slows down a little bit as we get towards Christmas. But right after Christmas, we have the All-American Bowl in San Antonio and the Under Armour game in Orlando. So there's a lot of stuff kind of firing back up right after the holiday break. So it's a good time to sign up, bamaonline.com. You can follow me along on Twitter at HankSouth247.
All right, that's at HankSouth247, Bama Online Recruiting and 247 Sports. We'll be catching up with him, next Thursday. But Christmas would have come and gone, so Hank, we want to wish you and your lovely wife, and tell her I said belated happy birthday as well. I saw that, and your baby daughter. Merry Christmas to you, man, and just wishing you and yours the best over these next few days.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to y'all too.